It's every Red Raiders' favorite podcast. This is the Tech Talk Podcast from Double T 97.3.
Hi, how are you? Good afternoon. It's Tech Talk on Double T 97.3 and Double T 97.3.com with Mike Gustafson and Clint Scott. I'm Aaron Dickens. We're joining you today from the First United Bank Double T 97.3 studio. We're with you until 6:30 today. Love bonus Tech Talk as we get you ready for Texas Rangers baseball. Feel the excitement. Rangers have lost, a billion games in a row. They'll play tonight in Houston at the Juice Box. 7:10 first pitch there from Houston. Our pregame coverage to preview this exciting matchup between a really, really good team and a really, really bad team. Starts at 6:30. Well, the Astros version of that broadcast for you begin at 8 o'clock on 100.7 The Score. We'll join that in progress following the high school fan zone tonight, which begins at 7 o'clock on 100.7 The Score. Gus, how you going?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great.
Yeah, refreshed after a 3-day weekend. No complaints there. I can do that more often.
No complaints should probably be the theme of this specific program today. Not usually. We normally have a nominal amount of complaints about any number of things. But, talking about the game Saturday where the Red Raiders open up with a win over Murray State, there's really not a lot to be salty about in terms of how the team looked, how they performed. There are some kind of nits that you can pick, certainly, and there were some unfortunate developments, namely the injury to Tyler Shough.
Yep.
But overall, especially after back-to-back seasons where you've really kind of struggled against these FCS teams, whether you overlooked them or didn't play up to your potential or whatever, it was really nice to kind of go out and just watch them steamroll somebody.
Yeah, just dominant. And I think history was made in that it was the first time 3 Tech quarterbacks have thrown touchdowns in one game. Did we ever get confirmation on that?
I have not seen that.
Okay. Yeah, that was the suspicion. And you think about that. There's a lot of times where 2 quarterbacks have thrown TD passes. If a third's gotten into the game, it's usually been garbage time. Throw a couple of curl routes and then run it into the line a couple times and take a knee. And but that's saying something. It speaks to the quarterback room. Everything we've heard since spring training, really since Coach McGuire was hired, and a lot of creativity, a lot of from that offense, and you should go back to the first play. And I love the response about the first play, the little flea flicker. Well, they ran it on us. They ran it on us one time in the in one of the scrimmages and had good success with it. So we thought, hey, why not? First play pinned down in your own 5. Mm-hmm. First play goes for about 50, and the crowd was pumping from that point on.
It does kind of seem the circumstances of the game, namely the early injury to Shough, kind of helped that along in that Donovan Smith got in probably earlier than they were expecting in terms of taking over the offense. Maybe they still plan to have him play a series or a snap here or there situationally. And then, by midway through the third quarter, that thing was already super out of hand. And that was made, more kind of emphatic by the injury to their quarterback, DJ Williams. And suddenly when he left, that offense just looked non-existent.
Yeah, not.
So, then you have Baron Morton in there with a quarter and a half to play almost.
Great. Now, I'm not saying his performance was fine, but the just great that he got that much meaningful time. And he even got a series with the ones, so it wasn't just, hey, we're mailing this in. And this is the sort of thing you'd see in a genuine quarterback competition where you don't want to give this guy all the reps with the ones and this guy all the reps with the 2s and this guy all the reps with the 3s, and then you're going, well, yeah, we didn't get the same kind of weapons. They rotated all of those dudes through with the 1s and the 2s and the 3s, and as they made their evaluation through camp, and and it showed. There didn't seem to be much of a drop off, and a ton of guys got pass catches and three rushing touchdowns for Taj Jones, a TD. I kept really it was more of the run than the pass, but Sir Roderick's touchdown, he takes a little check down,
and I believe that was his first receiving touchdown.
Is that right?
Which is pretty incredible. I mean, 2,000 rushing yards.
No kidding.
I think that's correct. I can look that up.
I would have guessed there'd have been a screen or something in there somewhere, but or a play like yesterday where he just took a little check down and made a move, and yeah, he juked that dude inside, and the dude kind of sat down on his heels like to brace himself for the move, and then when Sir Roderick jumped back outside, the dude just kind of went and fell over on his butt. And I thought, oh, hey, kind of looked like us over there. I mean, literally like the 52nd row. That looked like what most of us would have done today. Poor kid's probably going to be on film for a while.
First career receiving touchdown.
There you go.
First Roderick Thompson.
Awesome.
And like you said, Taj Brooks, excellent as always as well.
Really happy with both sides of the line. Both sides. I think they made it through unscathed. Health-wise, Adedire didn't play due to illness,
right?
And Blitty played well. Again, I'm sort of going off of the post-game comments. I won't sit here and act like my evaluation had him graded out at F94.
Well, that's what you spent all yesterday doing, I'm sure.
Breaking down that film.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point, right? And we all know that the tests will only get harder from here. I mean, there is no illusion about that in this space. But after an offseason where, we, people that follow Texas Tech football, talked so much about, how many question marks there are up front on the offensive line and how that's potentially, your weakest point on offense and all those things. It was good to see them come out and really respond. Now, we'll see what they do against Houston and NC State and Texas and so on and so forth. But there really wasn't ever a point where you felt like that quarterback was under pressure. I mean, Donovan Smith had a ton of time to sit back there and throw. They looked good, and again, we'll see what happens next, but that was a very promising start. Yeah,
even Shough's injury came on what looked like just a take the snap and go, just peels off the right side. That wasn't a scramble. It looked like it was a
design call, sure.
Design run, little lead play or whatever, and they blew the hole open, and he whatever that was, 8-9 yard run, and so you don't even point to that and go, well, there was that one time that they flushed him out of the pocket. Like, no, those guys were really standing back there unscathed for most of that game, which is great.
We'd love to hear your thoughts and comments about the game on Saturday. You can share those with us on the Yates Flooring Center chat line at doublet973.com. You can also access that through the Double T 97.3 mobile app presented by Happy State Bank. Lots more to get to still about the game Saturday and what is to come on the schedule. We'll also talk a little bit about what occurred around the Big 12 over the weekend. So would love to spend the next 3.5 hours with you on Tech Talk. We'll get you caught up on today's biggest sports headlines next on Double T 97.3.
The podcast that finishes your workday in a very Red Raider way. This is the Tech Talk Podcast from Double T 97.3.
Hey, it's the Juice on Double T 97.3 and Double T 97.3.com. The Juice is brought to you by our very good friends at Specs Wine, Spirits, and Finer Foods. 2 convenient locations here in Lubbock, 4th Street and the West Loop behind the Whataburger, and also 69th Street and Slide Road. Time for some headlines. Texas Rangers will be in action tonight in Houston, looking to snap a losing streak that has grown to 9 games, including a 1-0 defeat yesterday at the hands of the Houston Astros. Same 2 teams back at it again this evening. 7:10 first pitch from Minute Maid Park. Our pregame coverage will start at 6:30 on Double T 97.3. The latest AP poll has Georgia moving up to number 2 in the country, passing Ohio State. Alabama remains number 1, and the Crimson Tide received 44 of 63 first-place votes. The Buckeyes slipped to number 4. Michigan jumped 4 spots up to number 5, and then Clemson dropped a spot to number 5. Florida debuted at number 12 after defeating Utah. Wake Forest quarterback Sam Hartman has been cleared to return to action. That was announced earlier today. Hartman is a 3-year starter. He was sidelined last month with what the university termed a non-football injury. Today, Wake Forest acknowledged that Hartman was diagnosed with a rare syndrome, also known as effort thrombosis, which is a blood clot often associated with repeated strenuous activity. He had surgery to repair the issue on August 9th. And finally, some sad news here. Former Kentucky and Baylor head football coach Guy Morris died last night at the age of 71. He coached at Kentucky in 2001 and 2002. He spent the next 5 seasons leading Baylor, going 27-54 overall with both the Wildcats and the Bears. And then he later coached at Division II Texas A&M Commerce for 4 years. He was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease in 2016. You too can join the program. We'd love to hear from you on the Yates Flooring Center chat line at TT973.com. And this juice has been brought to you by our good friends at Specs Wine, Spirits, and Finer Foods. Gus, we get this on the Yates Flooring Center chat line from Home Finder. He says, my only issue with the game Saturday was that the tailgater of the game contest was obviously rigged. Raider 316 has this. B- is my overall grade for Saturday.
B-. Dang. Okay.
And I'm curious, is that a B- because of the opponent? And so it's kind of this like the reverse curve?
Yeah, it's like a weighted test. There's no way you could get an A because of who you're playing.
Right.
Oh, man.
And if that's the case, I think that's fair. I think that's fair. This in the chat line, like we didn't see that injury coming. We all saw it coming. Don't lie to yourself. Yeah, okay, it does. It stings, right? And you feel terrible for Tyler Shough, and certainly you hope that this is something on the more minor end of the spectrum. It was reported, I believe, Sunday or early Monday. TexasFootball.com had it first. That he would for sure be out for Houston and NC State. And I don't think that really surprises anybody. It didn't seem devastating considering he stayed out there and threw like 5 more passes until coming out.
God, that next one he threw, he ripped one to Nehemiah Martinez for about 25 yards, just stuck it in the hole. I'm like, man, dude, he looked good.
Right?
Good grief, he looked good.
This in the Yates Flooring Center chat line. So is Tyler Shough Bowman 3.0 and is a coach's greatest asset because he can be used as their excuse for not winning? Yeah, but I don't really know that that's the case, right? I mean, you can talk about injury prone if you want with the comparisons to, Shough and Bowman, but Bowman was healthy plenty, and lost games that mattered, right? And I think that, I hate using issue. That's such a cop-out word. The problem with Bowman, right, or the reputation or whatever you want to call it, was that, he never really lived up to that promise he showed prior to his first injuries. And, he kept on beating out who you had on campus because it was like Jet Duffy and, a bunch of guys.
That's very well said. I think what Shough's done to win the job 2 years in a row with 2 different coaches is pretty revealing. And thankfully, this is, I think these were Coach McGuire's words, but it's early enough in the season, and it's perhaps 3 to 6 months, and it really sounds like that's going to be a medical decision. Do they, is it a sprained AC joint, or is it more on the AC joint, or is it more a broken bone that they're going to put a screw in it or whatever? Coach McGuire mentioned what you said, the probably not playing against won't play against these next two opponents, most likely not against Texas. And then looking out on the far end, there's the open date that may bode well for him. The good thing about it is, for the second year in a row, it's not his throwing arm, and so his ability to and I can't exactly answer this. He'll be out there throwing passes tomorrow, but just can't be in any contact. I don't know that. But the fact that it's not his throwing arm will probably allow him to be closer to playing again and playing well when he returns, as opposed
you would sure think.
As opposed to he hasn't touched the ball for 6 weeks.
And I think too, like, he showed you. I mean, again, I understand the opponent and all that stuff, and we would have all loved to have seen Tyler Shough play against Houston and NC State.
Uh-huh.
But he showed you really good things before the injury. Granted, it was one quarter, right? But I mean, he was on target, right? The off. You would not have known if you just kind of tuned into that game randomly on ESPN3, or if you just kind of decided, I'll go to a Tech game, right? You would not have known that this was his first game under a first year coordinator at this school, right? Like there were no operational issues or hiccups. It was very smooth. He was in command the entire time. He did not get flustered or did not let them pressure him. He was really, really good, and that's the really crummy thing about the injury. And again, fingers crossed that the news is better than worse. But I guess
yeah. And of all the positions that there's the sort of depth that you can withstand an injury like that, that's the one. All right. To the texter a minute ago that said, like, you didn't know this was going to happen. Well, McGuire didn't know it was going to happen. Kitley didn't know it was happening. So if you really got that sort of injury level insight, you might want to call over there with your crystal ball,
or just go to Las Vegas.
Right. And that's but we'll see. The fact that the thing that I would have won out of all those guys, now it's the sort of deal like, hey, and I can see where if Shough gets piled up in a sack, or where the pocket crunches down on you, you're going to get hit, and that's just how it works. But on a play like that, of course, this is a young guy who's wanting to compete and show everybody he's healthy and all that. But basically diving and taking on the hit in sort of a way instead of sliding. I'm big on the sliding deal. We've watched Brady play like a weenie for so many years, and I mean that, like, throw the ball away and dance out of hits and stuff. I was like, yeah, that's why he's still playing at 45. And the nervous part about this now for me is that if Donovan gets into a situation where we get the 3rd and goal from the 1, and he's going to go play heavy, take the snap and go ram it over the tackle and take on 3 dudes and blow them up, that's great. But there's the only thing standing between you and your number 3 quarterback being in the game. And again,
when you were 3 deep, right, you could afford to maybe not have that thought dwell in the back of your mind.
Exactly.
But now, at least temporarily, and hopefully very shortly, you're not 3 deep, and so you do wonder how that changes the calculus, if at all, moving forward. We'll have Rangers baseball coming up at 6:30 on Double T 97.3. This is Tech Talk.
The podcast put together with Red Raider fans in mind. This is the Tech Talk Podcast from Double T 97.3.
Hi there, it's Tech Talk on Double T 97.3 and Double T 97.3.com with Dr. Mike Gustafson and Clinton Thurston Scott IV. I'm Aaron Dickens. We're joining you today from the First United Bank Double T 97.3 studio. Love to hear your thoughts and comments on the Yates Flooring Center chat line at Double T 97.3.com. You can also access that through the Double T 97.3 mobile app presented by Happy State Bank. Somebody says this on the chat line. Tyler just doesn't know how to take a hit.
How do you know how to take a hit? I mean,
I think that's probably saying as someone who's never taken a hit on a football field. I'm not speaking with any level of expertise here. But I do think that that's something kind of like maybe instinctual that maybe some are better at than others. Because in maybe defense of this comment, right? Mm-hmm. If you were watching from the stands or on TV and saw that hit live in any other game, I don't know that you would have said, "Oh,
devastating." Yeah, sure.
Right? Like this wasn't Dwayne Slay and Allen Everidge by any stretch. There have been far more kind of significant and more violent hits taken by Tech quarterbacks over the years, and this one just happened to hit right, kind of like the Alan Bowman, lung injury, just kind of happened to get hit right.
I remember about that lung injury. That was the one where he's down there on about the 2-yard line, and he's about to go out of bounds, and he stepped back in and just got trucked.
Mm-hmm. Well, even the first one, though, was not nearly as like, because the second one you kind of go, ooh.
Yeah.
Right? The first one was just kind of a fairly normal run-of-the-mill sack, it seemed.
The sack set up the thing I'm thinking of. I think I'm thinking of the same progression of games, and I remember thinking, dude, you got to get out of bounds, man. You're like, you can't. You're not built to take these hits. These quarterbacks taking on all this contact. Like, man, again, 4th and goal or 4th and 1 or get the first down line or something. But man, fighting for an extra yard like that and just getting tanked. Holy cow! But yeah, the tough part about the Shough thing the other day was just as he's hit, he rolls over to his left side and it all goes right there on that collarbone where it was last time. Man.
And kind of to your point about Tom Brady earlier, obviously you can't really fault any player for trying to, fight for every extra inch and yard. But at the same time, you sure would like to, you would love to kind of be able to go back in time and inject like an overdose of situational awareness into Tyler Shough there, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure that he was on some level going, hey, that injury's behind me.
Yep.
I'm bulletproof now, and I want to prove that I can kind of earn those tough yards. But, if you could kind of have the, the angel and the devil and the shoulder deal.
Yeah, sure.
Have one of those guys or gals going, hey, man, it's game 1. You're up by 1 billion points already. Just slide and throw for 2 more yards.
And this is going to be a 9-yard gain that you turn into a 7-yard gain by sliding. We move on to the next play. Yeah.
This on the Yates Flooring Center chat line. There's some folks arguing. Let's see. Tough break for Shough. No way he takes the job back from Donovan. Shough will ball for some group of 5 school next year. I think that's an interesting kind of point that they raised. Not about Shough transferring or losing his job or whatever, but this is for any kind of first-year staff, right? You want to be as much as you can focused on the football, right? On the games, on progressing on the field, progressing your program. And, now very early on in his tenure, potentially, and I guess hopefully, if you want Tech to do well, then you want Donovan Smith to do well in these next few weeks.
Absolutely.
But at some point in the near future, there will be a decision that has to be made here, right?
Yep.
By Joe McGuire that is a lot more, definitive than just, hey, Shough will be our starting quarterback. We're going to play all 3 quarterbacks, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas now, if you're mid-October and Donovan Smith is playing really, really well, and you're winning ball games,
you're getting your Coach McGuire's getting his Bill Belichick moment when Brady took over for I started to say Drew Brees.
Bledsoe.
Yeah, Bledsoe.
Yeah.
Remember, because Bledsoe has the spleen injury or whatever, comes back and they're like, stay over there. We're gonna keep playing the kid. There's the scenario there, and sort of flying in the face of the old adage, you don't lose your job due to an injury. There will be a bunch of focus on, and again, we have a crystal
cart
ball in
before
terms
the
of
horse, et cetera.
Yeah, are we a 2-4 team, 3-3 team, 4-2 team? Who knows? 5-1, 6-0. In some ways, this decision becomes very easy if it's at the either end of that spectrum.
Yeah.
If it's 1-5 or 5-1, might be an easy decision either way. One involves Shough, you can't get back soon enough, and the other one involves Shough, stand over here. We're
not going to change something that's going so well.
And if it's right in the middle at 3-3, then who knows? It becomes more of what you're talking about, and a talking point, a controversy, if you will.
This on the Yates Flooring Center chat line. It's a real thing. I played college football, and there is a method to getting tackled to up your chances of not getting hurt. Why do running backs not get hurt every play? Because they know how to take a hit. They don't know where the hit is coming from either. He needs to dance more. Just watch some Tom Brady film. Someone else says this in the chat line.
I agree.
Where's the sports hate for Shough like Bowman got? I mean, because there is no, and maybe this is largely because, he got hurt so early on in both of these seasons. Shough did, but there is no performance you can kind of point to that was super disappointing.
Right.
Arizona
Yeah.
a couple of years ago, or the loss to Texas a couple of years back. Shough doesn't own any kind of bad losses.
Nope.
You can point to that Texas game last year if you want to.
You're giving up 70 in that game. That
right,
was the
but he
problem
was
with
hurt
that
so
game.
early.
Yeah. And he was hurt scoring a touchdown in that game. One of the few early bright spots in that game.
This on the chat line from T-Money 806. Ever broken a collarbone? No. They suck and are never the same. Easier to pop it a second or third time after the first. Hate it for him. He looked to have it. So it's like the opposite of the Tommy John deal, huh?
Yeah. That's the implication there. It sure is. I mean, yeah, Tommy John, that's another topic, but yeah, that's
let's circle back next July.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
This in the chat line. Shough just isn't that good. I thought Shough was out of eligibility after this year.
No.
I disagree. I mean, I think that you can certainly argue incomplete. Right? I mean, he's played for a quarter in conference play in 2 years. And I don't think anybody's going to put him in the Ring of Honor.
No.
But certainly what he showed early on Saturday, again, you might grade on a curve and kind of put the top end grade at B+, but he was fine.
Yeah, it's now 2 coaching staffs and 2 offensive coordinators, 2 entirely different groups that have chosen Shough over.
And I think the most important group there, to kind of further reinforce Shough's bona fides, aren't coaches. It's the players that he beat out.
Yep.
It's one thing for Alan Bowman to beat out Jet Duffy and a pack of Big League Chew, right? I mean, the quarterback room in the later stages of the Cliff tenure and the early part, I guess early wasn't much of an early or late part.
Post-Mahomes.
Yeah. Was terrible.
Which is amazing when you think about who Cliff was.
Well, that goes back to the I think the original sin of the Kingsbury tenure was not taking a quarterback in that 2016 class and signing what's his face, the kid from San Antonio that anyways, signed him as a quarterback and he never played quarterback and was really a non-factor. This in the Yates Flooring Center chat line. AD negative Norman is just thriving on the airtime he's getting right now. Clint hasn't said much. What are you talking about?
I will say the artist that you guys mentioned, I really like his music, Post Mahomes.
Yeah, no,
really good.
Yeah.
All right. More tech talk next.
The podcast that finishes your workday in a very Red Raider way. This is the Tech Talk Podcast from Double T 97.3.
Hi there, it's Tech Talk on Double T 97.3 and Double T 97.3.com with Mike Gustafson and Clint Scott. I'm Aaron Dickens. We're joining you today until 6:30. We'd love to hear your thoughts and comments on the Yates Flooring Center chat line at doublet973.com. You can also access that through the Double T 97.3 mobile app presented by Happy State Bank. We get this on the Yates Flooring Center chat line. Somebody says, this is from Sooner in Lubbock. Why did they move Florida up so high? Well, on the one hand, they beat a top 10 team, right? And they're in the SEC.
Well, you're right. They beat a preseason top 10 team that was picked to repeat as Pac-12 champs, which is very revealing. Now they did so at home, and their quarterback looked dazzling, apparently.
Yeah, Anthony Richardson was phenomenal. There was a the rankings are as volatile in these first 2 weeks or so, 3 weeks, way more volatile than they will be in October, November. Right? I think there's a healthy, and I think this is good too. Like I think that the football rankings are much different than the basketball rankings in that in basketball it takes a lot for you to move up or move down significant amount, right? They'll give you a loss in basketball and not just send you plummeting down the list. Whereas in football, it's way more week to week. And I don't think that the majority of these voters need much of an excuse to, rocket a blue blood or blue blood adjacent program high into the rankings. And Florida, while they've been kind of down in recent years, they've won 2 national championships in the last 20 years?
Yeah, 20.
15 years.
And if you expand that into the 90s for Spurrier, it gets even bigger.
Yeah, 25, 30. So, and Utah's a legit team. Like I'm not going to sit here and kind of tell you that there's some soft Pac-12 outfit. I mean, they were very good last year. They were a kind of a sneaky good playoff pick this year. Kyle Whittingham's a very, very good coach. And they got beat. A couple things about Richardson, and I'd sort of highlighted these, and this is pretty good takes. This isn't just from your buddy Steve. This is from a real, couple of good analysts here. Suck it, Steve. See, I mean, you didn't have to do that, man. Your team's poor.
Yeah, we don't even know who Steve's rooting for, but his team's poor. About the quarterback Richardson. It was let me properly attribute this. Just our boy Stewie Mandel said, "It's easy to understand now why Dan Mullen is now working as a TV analyst. As the head coach at Florida, he had a healthy Anthony Richardson available for 2/3 of last season and opted to play someone else instead." So that the talk about him was the athletic draft analyst Dane Brugler said there is no college quarterback with more raw talent. And Greg McElroy tweeted that Anthony Richardson is the closest thing I've seen to Vince Young in a long time, capital Long. Now, they're about to play Georgia.
Well, and I hope everyone is, quickly finding their nearest source of salt to take a healthy dose. Because, this time...
With McElroy, you mean?
Well, no. With all of the Anthony Richardson is the most amazing thing ever because, what was it, like 9 years ago that Kenny Hill was suddenly...
Oh, my gosh.
Yes. Heisman favorite and, not gonna lose a step after Manziel leaves because they went up and beat the hell out of South Carolina. We'll see. And Richardson certainly does have a lot of talent. He was very highly ranked coming out of high school and was phenomenal against Utah. And again, that's a great performance against a great team. I'm not taking anything away from it, but we don't have to. And this is, I guess, my biggest complaint with college football is that after every week, it's like this is the greatest. This is the best. Sure. These are the best teams. It's week one, or I guess the second week of the season, depending on how you kind of view it. There's still a long way to go. Utah might end up flaming out.
Yeah.
Right? They might end up crashing and burning, much like Notre Dame did a few years ago, or Texas has done any number of times.
And that's
we'll see.
Yeah, and that's a big part of it. The bad performances are magnified, and the good ones are both ends of that conversation. the Iowa 7-5 game over South Dakota State, and that 7 was a 3 and 2 twos. So the defense outscored the offense. And if you're Iowa and you're coming off of, what did I circle here? 2.7 yards per play, and that was the 121st ranked offense last year. If you're the Iowa fan base, are you excited about? I mean, that was their game against their, not Tarleton State, Murray State,
right.
Whoever. There it is, right there, right? And their offense got stuffed, and it's the second year in a row.
I am rooting though. They're my team that I'm going for no reason to win every single game this year, but win it by scoring 7 or less, and they can't ever have a touchdown.
Yeah, not like you have good just baseball scores. Bases loaded double in the 8th inning. They'll give them the 7-5 win.
To me, that's just that is like the most pure distilled version of Iowa football, right? That you will find in terms of a box score. Or, I mean, I watched that game. I sat there and subjected myself to that spectacle
because it was close.
So obscene.
Because
it was just so bizarre.
Yeah, because you're not even paying any attention to that if it's 40-7.
No,
but at 7-5, you're going, I don't want to miss this.
And there was a graphic, a tidbit shared during that broadcast, and it ended up not turning out to be true because of the second safety that pushed the score to 7-3. But for the longest time, that score was 5-3. And
I think that was when we were joking about it being a baseball score,
right?
Because that's what it is. Yeah.
And the graphic on the screen was, hey, the last time a college football game ended in a 5-3 score was like 1981, and Iowa was involved.
that was our numerology deal that we talked about a couple of weeks ago.
So, and like people are going to be down on Iowa, right? And like, okay, well, they suck, and your team's poor. They're going to beat Iowa State this weekend, right? You can just kind of set your watch to it. They're going to win a good amount of games in the Big Ten. They're going to go to a decent bowl game. They're not going to look especially good doing it. They will get exactly 0 style points. They're basically like I'm wearing like a fishing shirt and khaki pant, like shorts with like cargo pockets, right? There is nothing attractive about the way that I have dressed.
They are the cargo
right?
short.
This is very like absolute minimum effort. I'm wearing flip flops. I'm putting on the clothes that I need to wear to not get fired or arrested. That's what Iowa football is, right? We're here to win. We don't really care how it looks. We don't really care if you're entertained, right, or leave the stadium happy. We just want to win, and we'll do it in the most ugly way possible. It's fine with us. And that's what they'll do.
Big with seeming, and it seems like this. Again, a lot of what we're talking about are these sort of images. It's like everybody thinks the Big 12 is this wide open, high flying offense.
Yeah.
Like, you haven't really checked back in a while. But my stereotype of Iowa is like big bruising tight ends and a big O line. I don't know if that's true or not. But.
More Tech Talk next.
It's every Red Raiders' favorite podcast. This is the Tech Talk Podcast from Double T 97.3.
Hey, it's the Juice, presented by our good friends at Specs. Time for some headlines. Texas Rangers baseball team will be in action tonight, visiting the Houston Astros. Rangers have lost 9 games in a row. They have slipped behind the Angels now and are 4th place in the AL West division standings. Lost yesterday to the Astros 1-0. They'll look to snap their skid this evening. First pitch from Minute Maid Park, 7:10 p.m. Central Time. Our pregame coverage will begin for you at 6:30 here on Double T 97.3. Some good news in college football as Wake Forest quarterback Sam Hartman has been cleared to return to action. He's a 3-year starter. He was sidelined last month with what was at that point called a non-football injury. It was revealed today by the program that Hartman was diagnosed with Paget-Schroeder syndrome, also known as effort thrombosis. It's a blood clot situation. He underwent surgery on August 9th to have that blood clot removed, and a follow-up ultrasound on Friday confirmed that he has no signs of additional clotting. He could play as soon as this weekend when the Demon Deacons play at Vanderbilt. And Wake Forest is ranked, right? They're 23rd in the country. This is that would be a big kind of off-field victory for them if he was back and only missed one game. Some sad news to report. Former Kentucky and Baylor football coach Guy Morris died last night at the age of 71. He coached at Kentucky in 2001 and 2002. For the next 5 seasons at Baylor. Overall, in those 2 stops, he was 27-54. He later coached at Division II Texas A&M Commerce for a few years. Diagnosed with Alzheimer's in 2016. Finally, this LSU defensive tackle Mason Smith, arguably the best player on the Tigers football team, will miss the remainder of the season after tearing his ACL in the Tigers' season opening loss to Florida State on Sunday. That was confirmed today by Coach Brian Kelly. You too can join the program. Love to hear your thoughts and comments on the Yates Flooring Center chat line at doublet973.com. The Juice was brought to you by our good friends at Specs Wine, Spirits, and Finer Foods. 2 convenient locations here in Lubbock. You've got 4th Street in the West Loop behind the Whataburger, and then also on Slide Road and 69th Street. We get this on the Yates Flooring Center chat line. Did a Bearcat go around and pee in everyone's Cheerios this morning? We won. Everyone lighten up. I think for the most part, this is my read on the situation. It seems like everybody's fairly positive about what happened on Saturday. I think there are just a couple of people in the chat line that are arguing about who knows. This on the chat line. Dressing ugly is okay with us. Good to know. Yeah. I appreciate it.
Perfect.
Yeah. Was there anything that happened in the Big 12 over the weekend that surprised, impressed, disappointed, that elicited any kind of reaction? There weren't just a ton of games on Saturday that were, gigantic. There were some big during the week games that we discussed, right? The backyard brawl, right? TCU beating Colorado.
But that was Friday night, so we haven't talked about that. No, I was going to say.
It was Thursday night.
Really?
Yeah. Time flies when you're doing remotes.
I thought the TCU game was Friday.
No, I'm sorry. I meant the backyard brawl.
No. Yeah, that was definitely. Yeah.
All right.
The TCU game was one that stands out to me because I thought they looked fast, but I'm also not sure that Colorado's very good. I mean, Colorado looked that doesn't look like a good situation there. And they kind of hung in there at one point. That was 7-6 type game in the second quarter ish, and then it was a blowout. I don't remember what it was, 38-13. And I don't know. There wasn't much around the Big 12 that really had me shocked by any of the results.
There are only 6 games this Saturday that involve Big 12 teams, and all of them were lopsided, right? Oklahoma beat UTEP 45-13. Baylor beat Albany 69-10. Iowa State all over Southeast Missouri State 42-10. K-State blanked South Dakota 34-0. Obviously, Tech did what it did against Murray State, and then Texas beat ULM 52-10. So I think we'll learn a lot more about the league this weekend.
Yeah,
certainly.
Well, and you almost can flip everyone that had sort of I'm going to say this. These are my words. Respectable opponent this past weekend is getting the week off, and again, I'm doing this with air quotes, so no disrespect. And then the other way around for everybody else, because there's a lot more good matchups. Missouri, K-State, Alabama, Texas, Iowa State, Iowa, Kansas, West Virginia. That's actual conference game there. Kent State, OU's the only one that may be taking their second week off here, I guess. Arizona State and OSU.
And then how about Baylor and BYU?
Yeah, Baylor
in Provo.
Yeah, and that's a really interesting matchup and a good one to circle really at the beginning of the season. TCU's hosting Tarleton, and so TCU had the name brand last week, and now they're getting Tarleton. And by the way, very quickly, to our new media in town and our new friends in town, it's Tarleton. It sounds like Carlton, okay, or Carlson. like Fresh Prince of
Were
Bel-Air.
there some folks?
There's a lot of we're getting at least a couple that are Tarleton, seeing it and sort of sounding it out. No, it's like Carlton. All right, don't make it any harder than it is. It's just my advice for our new friends. If you want to show us that you're not from out of town, get that one right. Tarleton. Practice it. Tarleton.
There you go.
Not Tarleton. All right.
Not charlatan.
No.
Tarleton.
Not Turleton.
I probably spent more time. I think there was more time spent and more thought given to less about the Big 12 and more about future or eventual soon-to-be Texas Tech opponents, because both Houston and NC State had very compelling games. Dramatic down to the last play. And as opposed to Big 12, I'm not changing the subject on you, but as I sort of went through the future Tech opponents and Big 12 things, I thought there wasn't much interesting in the Big 12, and there was a lot interesting about our next two opponents.
And this was probably always going to happen after you beat up on an FCS team and score 63 points, and defensively, outside of a couple of miscues, look pretty good. But the fact that they struggled, and Houston and UTSA, UTSA is a really good team program. They're playing in San Antonio. That was always going to be tricky. They were only about a 4-point favorite. NC State should have won way more comfortably than it did. But suddenly you look at those opponents, and they're not nearly as menacing or as overwhelming as they might have seen. More NC State than Houston. I don't know that anyone was sitting here in April or May going, oh man, Houston's going to be like some juggernaut.
Right.
Still a very tough game. I think Tech is favored right now.
I think 3.
Which sounds about right.
Yeah. I'll take it.
But yes, suddenly that after 1 week, and it's a week-to-week sport more than any other sport that there is, doesn't seem necessarily as quite as tough, the schedule, but we'll see. This on the Yates Flooring Center chat line from Sooner in Lubbock. I don't think I've ever rooted for Alabama. I think I'll make an exception this week. If you are a Big 12 person, and my assumption is that Sooner in Lubbock, who is soon to be rooting for an SEC program, is not necessarily just like waving the Big 12
Big 12
pom-poms,
pennant, yeah.
which is fine. But if you are sitting there or standing and you are a Big 12 person, and it chaps your rear end every time you hear some kind of national pundit dunking on the Big 12 or saying that it stinks or it's not a good conference or whatever, it's these kinds of weekends that can help begin to change that narrative, right? If you want, you don't have to, right? You can root for all of those teams to fail, and I get that. And you can just root for Texas Tech, and that's fine. I'm not telling you what to do. But this is one of those weekends where a really strong showing across the board in this conference it will help to start to flip that narrative, because you're playing Alabama, you're playing Iowa, you're playing BYU and Provo, you're playing Houston, you're playing Missouri, you're playing Arizona State. A lot of meaty matchups this weekend. More Tech Talk next.
It's every Red Raiders' favorite podcast. This is the Tech Talk Podcast from Double T 97.3.
Hello there, it's Tech Talk on Double T 97.3 and Double T 97.3.com with Mike Gustafson and Clint Scott. I'm Aaron Dickens. We'd love to hear your thoughts and comments today on the Yates Flooring Center chat line at Double T 97.3.com. You can also weigh in through the Double T 97.3 mobile app, presented by Happy State Bank. Had this on the chat line, AD and Dr. Gus. My son came in Friday. They gave him 2 tickets to the game. Took his grandfather, who had not been to a game since Spike was a coach.
Nice.
They had a blast. Thank you. Oh, you're most welcome. We were happy to do it. We'll be able to give away a pair of tickets on Thursday and another pair on Friday as well. Sorry that we didn't have more for you and your son, but happy that they had a good time. This in the Yates Flooring Center chat line.
And I did see there's like $20 tickets available this weekend.
How about, and that's, top 25 team coming to town.
Yeah, there's a code.
Give or take.
There's a code. I'll give it here in just a second. Keep going.
This in the Yates Flooring Center chat line. Sorry, but Texas putting up a good showing against Alabama does 0 for Texas Tech. LOL. if that's what you're suggesting, AD. I'm not saying it does anything for Tech,
Yeah.
to be clear. But if you are the type, and not everyone is, which is fine, and I don't know that I necessarily am either, but if you kind of pull for the Big 12 and it really bothers you when people dunk on the Big 12, then, this weekend provides a pretty good chance for the Big 12 to have a really good showing against a nice kind of cross-section of power conference teams.
Yeah, and I think the takeaway there is it's less of you talking about Bama versus Texas and more about the
you have a buffet of options.
Yes, on Sunday morning,
and
let's wake up and hope we went 6-3 in those games or whatever.
Exactly. 100%.
Or whatever the number
Well,
is.
I think because one of them is a conference game, right? So it's going to be
but just
6-2 or whatever.
A really nice showing across the board. It's sort of the way I was thinking about when you said that earlier. I was thinking about it's the way I feel every year during the Big 12 SEC hoops thing. The deal in late January every year. I'm like, all right, we went 5-4 or 6-3 or whatever. I want to win that. And this would be a good weekend in which a bunch of our teams take care of non-conference games, not the least of which is Texas Tech.
And, indirectly, there probably is a benefit to Texas Tech if K-State beats Missouri and, Iowa State beats Iowa or, Oklahoma State beats Arizona State because, if those teams win and you beat some of those teams, right, those victories they mean more, right? Both in terms of kind of how you feel about it and also in terms of how it is perceived by, the media. Does that mean that you're going to win any more games? No, of course not. And again, you can feel however you want. And I certainly will not be rooting for Texas on Saturday, to make that very, very clear. But I do want K-State to beat Missouri. I do want Oklahoma State to beat Arizona State. I do want Iowa State to beat Iowa. I think that helps. All right. I think that's overall a positive thing for Texas Tech, a positive thing for the Big 12. And heck, you want this conference to be positioned as strongly as it can be as it's sitting here looking to negotiate a new TV deal. And if you just kind of get curb stomped in all of these kind of, prominent non-conference matchups, then suddenly you don't look as attractive.
Yeah, I thought there was, I would think that and again, it's probably more fan sentiment. It's probably not what really is going into realignment decisions and who's getting invited to who and who the winners are and who the losers are. You and I've talked about that. Recent football success may not be as important in that conversation, other than the fact that it might drive more eyeballs to be relevant and have your fan base excited, right? Tech, by the way, had 50,000 plus tickets sold the other day. That was a good crowd. But if you're Colorado right now, and you might be looking at a Jenga blocks falling all the place around you, and you're coming off of that football game the other day in your home opener, think their crowd's going to be jazzed up about their upcoming schedule when TCU went in there and just worked them, and they look pretty bad, and that's a third-year coach in which you're going, okay, third year's kind of where you want to see something happening by then, right? You're done living off the previous guy's recruits, and the other optics game that I had circled was the San Diego State game. I guess they had all sorts of problems with their new stadium, brand new stadium.
It was. I saw some stuff on Twitter about that, and I thought it was so funny. Like the biggest complaint was there was no shade.
It was hot,
and it was hot.
Yeah, the San Diego
you
kids,
spoiled South Carolina sissies. Like what?
San Diego,
how we
San
all
Diego.
live,
Yeah, you
right
said South
over
Carolina. San Diego State.
Did I say?
You said South Carolina.
I meant
That's
Southern
right.
California.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Yeah.
Like you like, oh my gosh, it wasn't 75 degree and clear skies for one of your home football games.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I mean, like, oh, heavens to Betsy.
Yes.
And they didn't build any shade around their stadium. I had to shelter in the concession stand. I mean, give me a break, dude. What a soft fan base. And here I was sitting there a couple of weeks ago going, you know what? I wouldn't mind trading San Diego State for Colorado. I mean, it's Southern California, and they clearly care about football and commitment to the sport, etc. they're sitting there whining about it was hot outside and there wasn't any shade.
You were just wanting to dunk on the Pac-12. Take their the no-brainer choice for us is San Diego State. We'll take them.
Did Qualcomm have like built-in like sunshades? I mean, what?
Yeah, I don't know exactly.
Gee willikers. This is in the Yates Flooring Center chat line from Raiders Dad. Don't tell me what to do, Dickens. No conference clout or love could overcome my pettiness. Trust me, as someone who bristles whenever I'm told what to do, right?
That's confirmed.
Wow, that was quick. Gus, really settling in now, aren't you, after 2 months, 3 months? Suddenly we're very comfortable with each other now, huh? No, I'm kidding. I'm not going to tell you what to do, Raiders Day. You can do whatever you want. This in the chat line.
I mean, do you just want Texas to get dragged this week?
I do.
You want
absolutely.
them to give up 60-30?
Yeah. They cannot lose by enough points on Saturday. Sarkeesian. Yeah, yes. Absolutely. This
did you see his wife's clothes the other day? She wore like a lace thing to the game. Like, she's a big fashion deal. Oh, yeah. It's kind of like doilies. I mean, that's the only thing you can think of, kind of a lacy deal. I mean, I don't mean it was like inappropriate lacy.
But not what you would really expect for a football game.
No, heck no. And she was posing.
But you know what? They probably have a lot of shade at DKR.
That's true.
You know, so
she probably retired to the suite and the shadows of the new Moody Coliseum or whatever that thing's called. Yes.
This in the Yates Flooring Center chat line. Tattoo eater here. Yes, Pro Big 12 except when it comes to the Longhorns.
Yep.
This in the chat line from Raiders Dad. CU was a very Matt Wells-esque effort in showing against TCU. Somebody else is Tech football still set to play at Oregon in the next couple of years. As far as I know, that's still on the schedule. Yes, I can pull up.
There's an Oregon and an Oregon State home and home, and that Wyoming as well. While you're doing that, the Tech go to textech.com to buy your football tickets and do the promo code BEAT, UHBEAT. Let me try that again. BEATUH.
Okay.
All one word. So you get $20 tickets for this weekend. So, yep.
Or be at U of H.
That's true.
You know, whichever one. So Tech is hosting Oregon next year. So next year's non-conference schedule at Wyoming, which will be tough. Mm-hmm. Right? That's not a gimme.
Nope.
Oregon at home, and then you host.
Dun dun dun.
You like this? Tarleton.
Tarleton. All right. Nice. There you go.
Then you go at Oregon. The return trip in 2024.
Okay, and then because Oregon State's after that.
2025, Oregon State, in Lubbock, and then at Oregon State the following year.
Well, you get all you need at Canzano.
Yeah, one-stop shop, and then you'll get the payback game with NC State. Right, they'll make the return trip here in 2027, so a bit of a delay there.
Interesting. In the early 90s, Tech did home and home with Oregon and NC State. I think the OU was and Wyoming, by the way. 91, 92 with the Wyoming. It's really fascinating. It's been a fascinating thing for me to think about who we're playing in these next couple years on the home and home, and to think that it's a replay of the early 90s, 90, 91, 92.
Can we skip the Georgia game? Can we just not do that one?
And those were all one-offs.
Yeah, Tennessee, Penn State.
Spike was okay with those. He liked the challenge of it. And there was an Ohio State in 90 and a bunch of those one-off, really kind of payday type games. But, we've stopped those now, thank goodness. Because I'm all for playing. We'll either meet you somewhere in a one-off neutral site or you can come here and do a home and home.
You just don't want to be turned into ground beef.
You've been listening to the Tech Talk Podcast from Double T 97.3. Check out Double T973.com for more from Lubbock Sports Station.